Good afternoon to you all. I am Ntabiseng Hadebe. I welcome you to Mental Health Indaba. I am the co-founder of this movement. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Thank you for sitting with me this afternoon. Please don't forget to subscribe to our page. Please subscribe to our page and thank you for your presence. Now, today I will be sharing my journey on my drug addiction experience. But before I get into it, I just want to give you guys a brief explanation or maybe a brief idea of what led me into actually using cocaine. Now, when I was 14 years old, I remember it was one Thursday morning, I experienced an excruciatingly painful abdominal pain. Now, I went to school, thought nothing of it. I thought that as the day proceeded, it will somehow wear off. And I came back from school and it got worse. So when my parents knocked off from work, they came home and they decided to take me to one of the emergency departments of one hospital. And then upon my arrival at the ER, the doctors discovered that I actually had a burst appendix. Upon the burst appendix discovery, they discovered that I also have cysts in my ovaries. Now, those two required an immediate surgery. So I went into surgery to remove the appendix, the burst appendix, and to remove the cysts. I remember the next morning, it was a Friday morning, my mother and I, my mother came to visit me to see how am I holding up. Now, as we were sitting in the ward, the gynecologist came that morning to do her rounds. And I remember her telling me that she discovered that my fallopian tubes had an infection. And because my fallopian tubes had an infection, there was a scarring on my fallopian tubes. Therefore, there's a high possibility that I could never have children. Now, that was something that at that point did not really matter to me. I was only 14 years old and I wasn't really concerned about having children or not having children. Now, I stayed in hospital for a couple of days, and after a few days, I got discharged. I went home. I got healed eventually and went back to school. Now, fast forward to age 19. Here comes age 19. One morning, I'm feeling sick, I'm vomiting, I'm nauseous. My mother decides to take me to the doctor, our house doctor. We went to our house doctor, and the house doctor asked me random questions. And she asked me for a urine sample. I went to the laboratory, gave her a urine sample, and she ran some tests. Upon that, we discovered that I'm pregnant. Now, that's a mystery because now at age 14, I was told that I could never have children because my fallopian tubes had a scarring. Now, I'm 19 years old. I'm being told by my house doctor that I'm pregnant. Now, that's a mystery. I remember my mother and I walking home from that appointment. My mother was absolutely quiet. She did not say a word to me until we got home. When we got home, I immediately went into my bedroom. I delved into the silence of my bedroom the entire night. And they did not say anything to me. My parents never said anything to me. I was so afraid to even eat that evening. I did not have supper. I just locked myself inside my bedroom and said absolutely nothing. Now, the next morning, we woke up and they went about with their business. They went to work and still said nothing to me. Now, the next day after work, they approached me. When they confronted me, I remember I was in my bedroom. My father was the one who was doing the talking. And I remember my dad asking me, what is it that we as your parents are not doing for you, that you would allow yourself to be impregnated by a man at such a young age? Where did we fail you? Where are we failing you? What is it that you do not get from us that you find that you can seek for fulfillment from a man and to even allow him to make you pregnant? Now, I remember that I did not have any answers at that point. All I kept uttering was, I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry. I saw the disappointment in their face. They had such high expectations for my life. And that really broke me. I felt so empty. I felt so broken. Because at that point, that's when I realized that I compromised my future. That's when I think even my dreams were shattered at that point. And now I gave birth. I remember after giving birth, I never really had a bond with my child. I was never a present mother. I had relinquished all the responsibilities of being a parent unto my parents. I never really took responsibility. I continued with my life. I mean, I was always a girl who liked going out, being with friends, partying, and all that. And I continued to live in that life. I continued partying. And my parents were parents to my child. Now, how I got into drugs, I remember we were at this one specific party. My friend and I were minding our own business, standing separate from the crew and just minding our business, really. And I remember this guy came and approached us, a guy that we don't even know. Now, we had a brief conversation, and upon the conversation, whatever we were discussing, we discussed the impact of the alcohol that we were consuming at the night, that we don't really feel intoxicated. And I remember him saying to us, what if I tell you ladies that I've got something that can literally make you feel like you're on top of the world? And immediately I asked him, what is that? He said, follow me. Now we moved from the crowd and went to a much more discreet corner. Now, when we got to that corner, I remember he took out his wallet. Now, in the inside of his wallet, where people usually put their monetary notes, he took out a small straw and a bank card. Now, in the inside pocket of his jacket, he took out 2 small bags of cocaine, and he showed us how to use. And we took turns snorting cocaine. Instantly, I felt hyperactive. I felt energized. I felt on top of the world. And ultimately, when the party came to an end, we parted ways, my friend and we went to my friend's place. Now, the next morning when we woke up, we wanted the very same feeling that we had last night. And we called the guy. We did not hesitate. We called the guy and he agreed to meet us in town. We met in town and he took us to his supplier. Now, before we got to his supplier, I remember him asking us, how much do you ladies have? And I remember telling him that we have about 150 on us. And he said, that's not enough. Those things are very expensive. A little bag like that costs about 350 rands. And I said to him, we do not have 350 rands. And he said, it's okay. I will help you guys out. We went to the flat where the supplier stays, and nice cozy space, a nice cozy environment. I mean, there are different types of addicts. We got there, people were snorting, some were injecting themselves, different types of addicts. We bought the stuff and we also used, we sat down and joined the crew and used. And now he introduced us to his supplier now. And now we exchanged numbers with his supplier now. And eventually we left. Now, at that point, the addiction had already begun. I was so deep into it that I could not live without it. I remember looking at myself one day, but before I got to that point, I remember that we were so addicted that it broke my family, because I started, addiction is costly. And I'm a believer that wherever supply and demand meets, there has to be a trade. And when you cannot meet the ultimate request of the trade, you need to make a plan. Now, I would go home and steal stuff from home so that I could feed my addiction. I started off by selling every single valuable item that I had. And eventually, when I ran out of stuff to sell, I started taking my parents' things and selling my parents' things. And now that's how I survived. That's how I could get my next fixed. And we got so deep into it that I remember every time that we did not have cash, the supplier could easily come to where you are, and the supplier could give you credit and you would pay at a later stage. At 19 years old, I was not working. I remember there was a point in life where I was still studying and my parents gave me money for registration. I did not pay the registration. I used it on cocaine. Now, remember, I left them with a child. I'm not taking care of that child. All the expectations and the dreams and the hopes and the aspirations that they had for my life were shattered. Now, here I am coming and going, living where they don't even know where I'm staying. When they see me, they see me. When they don't see me, they don't see me. That was a very painful period in my life. I could not recognize who I was. I did not know who I was. And I continued using for a very long time. I remember now, when I was busy taking stuff from home, my mother used to think that we had a help at that point at home. And I remember my mother would think that the help was busy stealing stuff from home. Now, there was one specific incident that happened whereby the helper had to go away where she comes from to go and attend a family funeral. And she went away for about 2 weeks. And my mother realized that the helper is not there and certain things are still missing, even though she's not there. Now she began to wonder, who is the problem? I have a younger sibling. At that point, it was me, my younger sibling, and my child. Now, when she confronted me, I remember I said, I know nothing. I completely denied everything. I said, it's not me. It is not me. I don't know what happened. Maybe someone broke in or whatever. I came up with an excuse. And she just kept quiet. And the lady stayed there for about 2 weeks. And I still continued taking these things. And then they approached me for the second time. My father was there when they approached me for the second time. And that's when ultimately I told them that this is the kind of problem that I had. When I broke the news to them, I saw the disappointment in their face. I saw the shame. I saw a different pain that I cannot even explain. And being the parents that they are, they did not chase me away. They did not disown me. Instead, they did quite the opposite. I remember they sought help for me. My father was working with one guy. The one guy recommended that my dad takes me to rehab. Now, he recommended a rehabilitation that's miles away from home. Because here in Bloemfontein, I mean, the rehabs here, the period of rehabilitation takes about 3 to 4 weeks the most. Now, I went to Nelspruit, just outside Nelspruit, there's a huge rehabilitation complex in Mpumalanga. I went there for a period of 3 months. I stayed there for 3 months, completed my period, completed my rehabilitation program, and got my release license. After 3 months, I came back home. When I came back home, I stayed clean for a couple of months and I relapsed. Now, most of the time when I tell this story, people ask me, how did you relapse? Did you have the numbers of the supplier? What happened? How did you go back into drugs? At that point, I did not have the numbers of the supplier anymore. But what I had was the numbers of my friend. And that's how I relapsed. But before I get to how I relapsed and what transpired afterwards, I want to speak about the encounter I had with rehab. In rehab, as I participated in different programs that rehab entails, there was one moment we were asked to write letters to internally search in and forgive ourselves for our wrongdoings and the harmful effect that we have caused on our very own selves. And I remember sitting in my room and writing this letter. It was a struggle for me. And because I had to jot down every single thing, I had to write about my fears. I had to write about my anger. I had to write about my addiction. I had to write about the kind of friends that I had. I had to write about my pain, because now, after falling pregnant at age 19, my boyfriend left me, and he left me for a lady or woman that I know. And I think that's what led me into cocaine, because I became so, we dated for about 4 years. I could not believe what happened. I could not believe that he left me. I could not believe that he would deny the child that we conceived together. I could not believe that he left me to deal with this mess at age 19 alone. I was so angry. I was so bitter because he was continuing with his life while I was facing my parents, while I was facing the disappointment on their face, while I was facing all these and shameful acts, I would assume, or shameful looks that people would give me. Now, I had to write about all of that, and it was quite painful for me. I had to write about my fears, my anger, the boyfriend that left me. I had to write about the sexual encounters that I had before. I had to really dig deep in order to find what was the root of this problem. And now it's very difficult to search in as a person, because now I come from a point of escaping. I mean, addiction is a form of an escape mechanism. So I come from that point, and here I am required to dig deep, something that I literally ignored doing. And it was very painful. It was very painful. I could not detail every single thing. And I remember the next day, I had to meet my psychologist and discuss that with her. And while I was discussing, I wrote what I decided that I want to share. And I remember her looking straight into my eyes and said, "That's not enough. Go back. You did not write everything." And I started from scratch, and I wrote every single thing. And I came back the next day and I read the letter out to her. And after telling her all these things that I've done before, she asked me a very burning question, I think. At the end, she asked me, "Who is Nthabiseng?" I looked at her with wonder, with anticipation, and I said, "I do not know." Because I could not identify who I was. I did not know where I lost myself. I could not pinpoint what led me to slip. I just didn't know who I was. Yes, I was a person, but yes, I had a name, but I could not understand who am I. And at that point, I was more afraid of living than I was afraid of dying. Because death to me meant eternity. Living to me meant fear. Because death to me meant the end. Living for me meant fear, because I did not know if I come out, who am I going to come out as? If I introduce myself, who do I say I am? When people look at me, what do they see? Because I could hardly look at myself in the mirror and say, this is who I am. Because what I saw in the mirror reflected someone that I did not know. So it was a very intense period at that time in rehab, whereby I really had to dig deep. It was very painful. It required a whole lot of soul searching. However, I am grateful for the journey. Now coming back home, I stayed clean for a couple of months, and unfortunately, I relapsed. Now, how the relapse came about, no, I did not have the numbers of my supplier at that point, but I had the numbers of my friend. And unfortunately, at that point, my friend did not seek help. My friend was still using. And I called my friend and we met up, and instantly I was back at it again. And I continued for quite some time. And then again, I started taking stuff from home. And my mother discovered that she's back on it again because I started not sleeping at home again. Those old same patterns came back again. And now I remember they still, my parents being the parents that they are, they still sought out help for me. I remember my mother spoke to a lady that she trusted. She confided in her. And now this lady said to her, how about we try church? Maybe it might help her. And I remember my mother coming back to me and saying, on Wednesday, we're going to go back to church. We're going to go to church. Go to church. Telling a drug addict about church. And I came up with all sorts of excuses that no, I'll be fine. I still remember the steps of rehab. I still remember what I was taught in rehab. I will be okay. I do not need church. And my mother was firm and she was like, you are going there. We are going there. And we went to church with the lady. It was a midweek service. I don't even remember what the message was about. It was a midweek service. All I remember is that I saw people lifting up their hands. Some were crying, some were in worship. I was wondering, what madness is this? And I remember the pastor coming straight to me and saying to me, make an appointment with one of the ladies that assist me here at church. I want to speak to you. I looked at him. I did not say yes. I did not say no. And after the service, we approached the lady and we made an appointment. Now, on the appointment day, I was quite skeptical to go back. And my mother was still firm and saying, you're going to go there. And I went there. Now, before arriving there, I'm thinking that I'm going to get there. The pastor's going to tell me about sins. He's going to tell me about the Bible. He's going to tell me about praying. I know nothing about prayer. And I got there. I got into his office and he started telling me about his journey. Now, that's a different expectation. He started telling me about his story. That day, we did not at any point open the Bible. He told me about his story. And that's when I realized that I can open up at that point. And that's when I realized that I am at a safe space. So we started conversing. And as the conversation proceeded, I realized that a conversation between two people has a way to exude certain qualities that were hidden. And after our conversation, after our meeting, I remember walking back home. As I walked back home, I was speaking to myself internally. And I realized that a conversation between the mind and the spirit crystallizes perception. And at that point, my perception was renewed. However, don't think that I stopped using because I had an encounter with the pastor. No. However, something had changed. I was propelled to attend the services. And we had frequent meetings. I mean, the pastor had such an interest in me that I could not understand because we did not know each other. And he just had an interest in me and my messed up life. We would meet frequently. And when we meet, we would speak about random things. What are your aspirations? How are you feeling now? How are you coping now? And for me, it was a sort of a relief coming from someone that's outside my family. However, I continued going to the meetings and going to the services. Sometimes I would go to our meetings with the pastor and I would be high. And he would never chase me away and say, you are high, you have used, why did you come here? We would have a conversation, and when the conversation ended, I would go back home. So for me, I found a space, I found a sense of belonging. I found hope, and somehow there's something that instigated me to go back. There's something that it was like I was being called to come back and come back and come back for my redemption. And I kept on going back until ultimately I slowly weaned off the addiction. Through prayer, through deliverance, and through the support of my parents, I slowly weaned off the addiction. Now, I'm not saying rehabilitations do not work, because for me, it's two things that worked. Spirituality, church helped me, and rehabilitation, there are certain tools that I use even today that I have acquired from rehabilitation. Now, most of the time, people we think that people, when I speak about my church experience or my encounter with church and the church actually helping me, they think that church is the only source that can help. I am not saying rehabilitations do not work. I strongly believe in rehabilitations. I am a product of rehabilitation myself. However, for me, it took a sense of a higher power to somehow help the help that I got from rehab to complete the work. The work was completed through church. The work was completed through church. Even now, the work is still being completed. Because I always say that substance abuse is a form of depression suppressed by a preference of substance. We are suppressing certain things that we're supposed to be dealing with. As an escape mechanism, we are afraid of a reality that we're supposed to be dealing with. Therefore, we think that substance can be an escape mechanism. It can be our source of help. And that's not always the case. However, I am truly grateful for the journey. And I have learned a lot from rehab and from the encounter I had at church. You know, life takes us from certain points to certain points, from one point to another. And the reason why we started this movement, I'll call it a movement, is so that we can have conversations regarding what we have been through. I was disappointed by a man, and I carried a child that I did not have a bond with until I gave birth to him. And I sought out fulfillment in wrong places and ended up destroying my own life. And I got help, but unfortunately that help was not effective to last me for a long time. Hence why I always say that recovery is never ending. People refer to us as recovered addicts. I am not recovered. I am still recovering. The reason why I say that it's because that recovery is a mindset. Recovery is a choice. Every morning when I wake up in the morning, I choose to recover by the thoughts that I have in my mind, by the choices that I make throughout the day. Because life throws us into potholes. Life, it has unexpected circumstances, and I can always go back to the pothole that I know. I can always go back to the comfort that I know. So it's important for us to stay alert as addicts. We are never fully recovered. Addiction is a disease. And I always say, even to parents, even to addicts or addicts' families, that addiction is a disease. The more you understand the disease, the better it is for you to actually know how to support the addict. The more you understand the disease, the better you will understand how to support the addict. I was an absent mother. I was never a full-time mother to my son. I felt inadequate for quite a long time. I could not make sense of my life. I could not understand why I was born. I remember at some point there was a stage in my life where I used to wish that I could have become a fetus that did not reach the full development stage. Addiction is a disease, I repeat. People think that addiction is a choice. It's not a choice, it is a disease. Just like depression. Depression is not a choice, it is a disease. Now, for me to be fully willingly or fully delve into the discovery of my healing, I had to peel off certain layers. I had to find myself. I had to reconnect with Ntabiseng. I had to find my identity. I had to find my renewed identity. And I had, most importantly, I always say that addiction entails a lot. As addicts, with every addict, there's lies, there's deceit, there's betrayal. Now, for me, I had to go back to the people that I've lied to, I've betrayed, and ask for forgiveness. Yes, some will forgive you. Some will be overwhelming with grace. Some will say, not me. I'm not willing to give you a second chance. And that is okay. At least I know that I've cleaned my half of the street. At least I know that I tried. At least I know that I tried to go peel out all the weeds in my garden of life. So I had to go back and ask for forgiveness. That took me finding my renewed identity. From the renewed identity, I discovered my value. And from my value, I developed a personal constitution whereby I said, this is who Ntabiseng is. I am not willing to go out there and compromise myself in certain ways. I need to go back to school and finish my studies. I need to be the mother that I longed to be. And I could only be that mother until I discovered my value. I could not pour from an empty cup. I could not. There was no way I could. And until I saw my son as my son and not see him as a product of what his father did to me, only then could I step out and be the mother that I am today. Only then could I go out and seek the bond that we have today. So addiction took a lot from me. It really took a lot from me. And as I awakened from my downfall and the pain moments of life, I realized that it is never about the number of people that make a spectacle of your ordeal. People always ask me, but what do you mean when you say that? Yes, I have that. I've had my moments as well, whereby I would sit inside the house. I did not want to go out. I did not want to go to any family gatherings because of the shame. But once I discovered who I am, I began to understand that it is not about the exponential growth of the number of people that are making a spectacle of my ordeal. However, it is about the ability to realize what made me slip. That's where my lesson is. What people say has nothing to do with me. It's none of my concern. My concern is realizing, where did I slip? Where did I slip? And how do I get back up again? That is my concern. Now, I have realized that consciousness awakens recognition. In recognitions, lessons are attained. Consciousness awakens recognition, and in recognition, lessons are attained. Hence why I emphasize this. It is never about the number of people that are making a spectacle of your ordeal, your ability to realize what made you slip. Yes, people have talked about me. People have giggled behind my back. People have murmured, and it is okay. It is okay. It is important for you to find your source of healing. It is important for you to find your source of healing. I hibernated for some time. I was consumed by shame and self-condemnation. Recovery is never ending. I am still recovering even today. I'm still recovering even today. I am still living with consequences of the choice that I made. So for me to fully step out and speak about my story and what transpired takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of courage. But I believe that if I can do it, someone else out there can do it. Addiction is a way at your life. Addiction is a way at your life. Addiction is very powerful. It's called life. It takes a lot from you. It takes a lot from your family. It's not an individual's disease. It's a family disease because the family get to suffer the consequences of the addict. That's the unfortunate part. However, sobriety is possible. Sobriety is possible. When we speak about sobriety, people think that we focus only on you being sober for a couple of years. I've been clean now for almost 10 years. In October, 10 years. And not only of that, sobriety, I always believe that it's about being clean and it's about connection. Because me, it's a different kind of connection to me that I am more than addiction. Sobriety is about connection. There is absolutely no way that I would stay for this if I connected with the people that enable use with them. When I say sobriety is about connection, sobriety is connection. And most importantly, I want to speak about something that's very touching me. Make the ultimate decision to forgive myself. I had to make the ultimate decision to forgive myself. And I remember for some time, I did not have the confidence in my ability to forgive myself. I did not see myself worthy of being forgiven, let alone by myself. Therefore, I remember I put my own forgiveness for the self on probation. Do you trust in Tabising? Tabising, do you trust yourself? Let's see if you can stick it out for 3 months, and then I can forgive you. I had convictions that made me think that I would get this whole thing, this whole sobriety thing. I would never get it right. But I had to work hard at it, and I had to work hard, even though my mind was limiting at times. I had to work hard because I believed at some point in my life, I used to believe that the door of life is closed with a better hiss behind. And sometimes I felt nothing's pain. I yearned for happiness, a place where all the deposits of my carnal relationship would be laid off. I had a relationship with cocaine that we were inseparable. I could not live without it. I could live without it. And I was so dependent on it that without it, I saw no life. Hence why I did all the things that I did. In my journey of addiction, I experienced quite a lot. I've seen people dying in front of my eyes. I remember at some point, like I said before, that we used to take cocaine on credit from my supplier. Owed a lot of money and some club. And fortunately or unfortunately, so we were seen by one of his acquaintances, and we and we left. However, they saw us and then we had called our supplier to say we see these girls there here. And I remember we were running. It was around 2 a.m. in the morning. My friend and I were running in the streets around town. We were fired with shotguns. We ran for our lives that day. For me to be alive today is still unbelievable. Because then I affected my life. It was a very painful moment. And thankfully, we got help and someone decided to try us somewhere. However, we had to make money. We had to go to our parents and say, we owe this money. If we don't pay them, they're going to kill us. They tried to kill us. So I've seen women being killed. I've seen suppliers killing one another in front of us. Money. Addiction is a very dangerous space, especially when it comes to addiction. You deal with dangerous people. The suppliers are dangerous people, and we see a lot. It's traumatizing. It really is traumatizing. And today, I know many people that I used to use with who have passed on a long time ago. In second chance today, it's grace. Not many people got to be where I'm at today. Cocaine nearly destroyed me. As I am the person that I am today, but it took a large portion of my life away from me. I remember there was a point in time that I could memorize anything. My memory was completely a mess. I was a mess myself. I mean, if you see me walking down the street, you would not even warrant me a second case. That's how messed up I was. That's how messed up it becomes. Because you are consumed by this thing. You cannot think straight. Do nothing with your life except finding a way to get your next fix. I lived it for years. And unfortunately, most of my friends did not get the opportunity to live long or to even change their lives. I know some of them must be in that life even today. So to be here, it's not by my power, it's not by might. It's because of support parent, the support partner, the support of family, and God. Addiction is painful. Addiction is painful. Addiction is a place, especially drug addiction. You put your life in danger. Your life is always in danger because there are lies, there are betrayals. You borrow money from different kinds of people, lie to people. You deceive people. You live a life filled with lies. You're this character tomorrow, you're that character you every single day. We are manipulative. You become manipulative. You have a soft tongue. You have a very smooth. You're a smooth talker, and you have the ability to make people feel sorry for you. I had that. Whereby people would really feel sorry for me, and people give me their money when I ask them to give me their money, only to find out later that I used it on me. There's a lot of lies. There's a lot of deception. And to parents out there who have children who are using, support is important. As the Black community, it is important that we support our addicts. Stop labeling them as nyobe boys, nyobe girls. That doesn't help. It doesn't help. And the thing with us addicts is that we get power from being in a crowd. We get power from being in a crowd. If you can reach out to that addict, as a you'll realize how vulnerable they are. Until I was alone, only then could someone reach out to me. Within a crowd, you could not find me because I was this arrogant person, this confidently arrogant person who's all time. But beneath that, there was intensity. There was an excruciating pain. There was brokenness. Cocaine was my layer. I had hidden every single thing with it because people would see me high and jolly and happy and think that I was a mess. I did not have it all. I was a mess. However, I am grateful for the journey. As painful as it is, I am grateful for the journey. I know a lot today because of what I've been through. I know a lot today because of what I have been through. I was purposed for this, as painful as it is, as sick as it is, as addictive as it is. Healing is possible. I'm a firm believer that behavior is learned. If you can learn how to use cocaine, you can surely learn how to live without it. Behavior is learned. And if we can acquire coping mechanisms, then we can live a life like every other person. If we can acquire coping mechanisms, then we can live a life like any other person. That's what I aspire addicts to be. That's why I am here, to let other addicts know that if you have the coping mechanisms, you are all set. You have not recovered yet. The possibilities of you going back there are quite high. But if you have the coping mechanisms, every day you make it an intention to say, I'm not going to go back there. It's a daily decision. You have to be intentional about it. You have to be brave about it. You have to be bold about it. You have to disclaim it. You have to disclaim it. You have to claim it. You have to be bold and declare it every single day. Claim it, declare it, claim it, declare it. People always ask me, how do I become the Tamsin that I am today? And I always say that I have been in the fire. However, I didn't burn into ashes, but I carry the scent of the flame. And they ask me, what keeps you alive? I say, the mere fact that I have stopped placing myself on a scale that measures the weight of my past. That's what keeps me alive. And now I understand that my scar is an evident reference that I have the experience. That's what keeps me alive. So to every addict out there, sobriety is possible. It's a mindset. Everything begins here. If you are strong here, physically the body will adapt. Every single thing begins here. It's the thoughts. It is the thoughts. I always tell parents who come to me and seek help, I tell them there is nothing that I'm going to give your son or your daughter that's going to help them to get off drugs. But I'm going to speak to the mind. That's the only way that I can help you. From there onwards, I can refer you to professionals. So every single thing is mentality. The mind is a very powerful tool. The mind is a very powerful tool. And we are all products of what we tell ourselves. We are all products of what we hear. We are all products of what we see. So it is very important what we listen to, what we see, and what we hear. Because ultimately, all those elements, they become what we release through our mouths. Our utterances are dwell from what comes in mind. So it's very important to empower the mind. I know that sound has a taboo, or something like that, but it's important to empower the mind. Addiction is a mindset. So it's a mind game. If you get the mind right, then you are all set. It's like depression. Depression is a sense of not knowing how to cope and not having these overwhelming emotions that you do not know how to deal with them. Addiction on its own is a traumatic experience because firstly, your body changes, how you look changes, how you speak changes, how you carry yourself changes. Some people get even to a sense of losing or having interest in personal hygiene. So it's like an experience on its own. You lose yourself. A mad person, you lose yourself. You literally lose yourself. Often people are like triggers. Yes, triggers are there. But one form or one major triggers that I had to avoid, people, the places that I go to, in the conversations that I had to avoid. There are places that I cannot go to. And make it a firm and intense and an intentional decision that I'm not going to go to the States because I know it's something with me that might lead to cocaine. And conversations, like I just said, words are very important. Who do you speak to? Who do you listen to? And most importantly, what do you say? It is important that we have a connection or a way of speaking ourselves. We cannot always focus on what people say or what happens to us. It is important that we have manner way of speaking to ourselves. It is important that we have a way of speaking to ourselves and knowing that we are enough. Know that we are enough. Know that we are enough. Cocaine is quite. I get very emotional every time I sleep. It's a powerful addiction. It's a very powerful addiction. And of your life. It takes a hold of your life. But one thing I can tell, sobriety is possible. It is possible. It is possible. Life is an act of faith. Life is an act of faith, and suffering is optional. Suffering is optional. How we deal with circumstances is a choice. How we deal with things that happen to us is a matter of choice. Yes, life can overwhelm you. But if you seek necessary help from necessary people, they will teach you the manners of dealing and how to cope. So people should not dwell and say, I cannot cope with this. We have platforms like this whereby you can come and say, I need help. We will link you with the correct people if we cannot help you. Or if you have a personal story that you would like to share, you can share it with us. Thank you so much for your time. Please continue to subscribing and liking our page. I overcome cocaine. And I believe every single addict that's watching me right now, you can also do the same. Doesn't end here. Doesn't end here. Doesn't end here. What a desire until it becomes something that you cannot live without. Until you wonder, whatever forged a bond between us. With me, it used to quarrel with my body. But I wanted it so bad. Even though my body could not take it. But I continued using it. I still continued using it. I still continue using it. That's how powerful it is. That's how powerful it is. But there is help out there. There's help. But the most important thing is that you have to be willing to get the help. If you're not willing to do it for yourself, doing it for other people, you're not going to do it right. Getting help is a matter of being willing to do it and do it for yourself, not other people. Not other people. There is help out there. I want to emphasize this. There is help. Life does not end with addiction. Life does not end with addiction. A life of sobriety is possible. A life of sobriety is possible. If I could miss gunshots to be here today, should you overcome whatever addiction that you have? And we all have forms of addiction. The problem is that some are more harmful than others. Some people are always, some people are addicted to shopping. We have various types of addictions. Hence why I always say that we are all recovering from something. We are all recovering from something. No one is completely free from pain. No one is immune to any sort of pain. We are all recovering from something. What sets us apart is the manner in which we recover. What sets us apart is the manner in which we recover. We all have different vibrations. And I always say, what sets us apart is our frequency. We all have different vibrations. What sets us apart is our frequency rate. What are you cut out to be? Your frequency rate determines what you're cut out to be. Your frequency rate determines what you're cut out to be. Your frequency rate determines what you're cut out to be. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. I feel like I need to repeat this. We are all vibrating. However, what sets us apart is our frequency rate. You need to determine your fabric and what you significantly cut out to be. Every single thing can be overcome. I have been in the fire. However, I did not burn into ashes, but I carry the scent of the flame. Who are you and what sets you apart? I invite you to come to our platform and share your story with us. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. And please stay tuned. Next week, please tune in. We're going to have a social worker, a mental health advocate. Please don't forget to log in and tune in. Thank you. God bless you all.